Most people work hard their entire lives and still never get ahead. They wake up early. They stay late. They do everything they're told. And yet, wealth, success, and freedom always seem just out of reach. That's not an accident. The truth is, success has very little to do with how hard you work, and almost everything to do with how you think. More than 80 years ago, Napoleon Hill studied over 500 of the most successful people in the world, including industrial giants, inventors, and self-made millionaires. He wasn't looking for luck. He wasn't looking for talent. He was searching for the mental code that separates those who rise from those who stay stuck. What he discovered became one of the most influential success books of all time. Think and Grow Rich. But here's the problem. Most people misunderstand this book. Some treat it like magic. Others dismiss it as outdated. Many read it and still never change their lives. Not because the book is wrong, but because they never truly understand what it's teaching. This is not a book about wishing for money. It's not about blind optimism or mystical thinking. It's about conditioning the mind, directing desire, and turning belief into disciplined action. In this full audiobook breakdown, we're going to strip Think and Grow Rich down to its core principles, chapter by chapter, idea by idea. No fluff, no outdated language, just the psychology, behavior, and mental frameworks that actually create success. You'll learn why desire, not intelligence, is the starting point of every achievement, how belief shapes action long before results appear, why most people quit right before success arrives, and how your environment, habits, and decisions quietly determine your financial future. By the end, you won't just understand this book better. You'll understand why your results in life look the way they do. This isn't about getting rich overnight. It's about building a mind that inevitably produces growth, opportunity, and wealth over time. Welcome to Think and Grow Rich, broken down, clearly, honestly, and powerfully. Chapter 1. Desire. The starting point of all achievement. There is a brutal truth most people avoid. You can have talent. You can have education. You can have a good job, and still live a life that feels small. Not because you lacked potential, but because you never aimed your potential at anything specific. That is where Napoleon Hill begins. Not with money. Not with business. He begins with desire. Not a casual wish. Not a "it would be nice." He's talking about a hunger so clear and so personal that it starts reorganizing your decisions. Because whether you realize it or not, your life is always moving in the direction of your strongest desire. If comfort is your strongest desire, you will choose safety over growth. If approval is your strongest desire, you will avoid risks that could make you look foolish. If status is your strongest desire, you will spend to impress instead of saving to build. And if you don't consciously choose your desire, life will choose one for you. Usually something shallow. Usually something convenient. Usually something that keeps you average. Hill's argument is simple. People don't fail because they lack resources. They fail because their desire is weak, blurry, and negotiable. The difference between wanting and deciding. Let's draw a clean line here. Wanting is emotional. Deciding is directional. Wanting says, I hope things improve. Deciding says, this is what I'm building, and I'm not negotiating with my old habits anymore. Most people want wealth, but they decide comfort. They want freedom, but they decide to stay in familiar pain because it feels predictable. In simple terms, your results don't come from what you like. They come from what you choose repeatedly. That's why Hill puts desire at the top. Because desire is not the finish line. Desire is the ignition. Why most people stay stuck? Here's a common pattern. A person is inspired. They watch a motivational video. They hear a story. They feel that temporary fire. Then the next day comes. Bills, pressure, fatigue, doubt. They return to old routines. And after enough cycles, they quietly lower their expectations. They call it being realistic. But in reality, they are protecting themselves from disappointment. Hill would say this is the enemy. Not failure, not competition. The enemy is slow surrender. You don't wake up one day and give up on your dream. You give up in small doses. You delay. You hesitate. You compromise. Then you call the compromise maturity. To summarize, most people don't lose. They gradually stop insisting. Desire needs a target. Now, a key point. Hill pushes specificity. Because the mind cannot hit a target, It cannot see. If you say, "I want to be rich," your brain hears fog. Rich compared to who? Rich by when? Rich for what purpose? But if you say, "I want to build an income of X per month by providing value through Y," now your mind has something to organize around. This is not magic. It is management. When your target is clear, you start noticing opportunities you used to ignore. You start filtering distractions differently. You start hearing advice differently. You start choosing better environments. And you stop romanticizing shortcuts. In a nutshell, clarity is a weapon. Vagueness is a trap. Your desire must become a plan. A strong desire is not only emotional. It becomes structural. It produces a goal, a timeline, a strategy, and a willingness to pay a price. Because every meaningful goal has a price. Sometimes it is time. Sometimes embarrassment. Sometimes loneliness. Sometimes sacrifice. Many people want the reward, but resent the price. They want confidence without discomfort. They want progress without discipline. They want wealth without patience. Hill's point is that desire becomes real when you accept the price and still move forward. To summarize, desire is not what you feel. Desire is what you're willing to endure for. Imagine two people with the same salary. Person A has a strong desire for freedom, not luxury, freedom. So they build habits that match the desire. They save consistently. They reduce unnecessary spending. They learn a high-value skill at night. They network with people building businesses, not only people complaining about life. They invest time the way others invest money. Not because it's easy, because their desire is clear. Person B also says they want freedom, but their deepest desire is comfort and validation. So they spend to feel better today. Avoid learning, because it feels hard. Stay around people who normalize struggle. Delay action until they feel ready. Both people claim the same goal, but their desires are not equal. And after a few years, the gap looks like luck. But it's not luck. It's alignment. In simple terms, when desire is real, behavior follows. When desire is weak, excuses lead. The 6-step method reframed. Hill offers a structured method to turn desire into reality. We will express it in a modern, usable way. Define the outcome clearly. Not more money. A specific number. A specific aim. A specific reason. 2. Define what you will trade for it. Time, effort, pride, comfort, learning, consistency. Decide the price up front. 3. Set a deadline. Deadlines create urgency. Without a date, goals become wishes. 4. Create a simple plan. Not a perfect plan. A workable plan. Something you can start now. 5. Act immediately, then adjust. Action creates feedback. Feedback creates improvement. 6. Rehearse the identity daily. This is not superstition. It's conditioning. You repeatedly remind yourself what you're building and why it matters, until your mind stops treating it like a fantasy. To summarize, you don't rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your systems. The hidden message behind desire. Let's go deeper. Desire is not only about money. Money is often the surface symbol. Underneath, people want security, respect, options, a voice, control over time, the ability to say no, the ability to protect family, the ability to live without begging life for permission. When you connect your desire to a deeper reason, it becomes harder to quit, because you're not chasing numbers. You're building a life. In a nutshell, shallow desire fades. Deep desire endures. Here's the danger. A desire can be strong but misdirected. Some people desire fast money. They chase shortcuts. They take reckless risks. They copy what they don't understand. They enter schemes that reward hype, not value. Hill's message, properly understood, is not get rich quick. It's get clear, get disciplined, and persist. Because wealth built on speed often collapses under pressure. Wealth built on value tends to survive. To summarize, desire must be paired with character, patience, and planning, or it becomes greed with a deadline. If you only remember one thing from this chapter, remember this: your life changes when your desire stops being a preference and becomes a decision. When you no longer negotiate with distractions, when you no longer wait for perfect confidence, when you stop explaining your potential and start directing it. In simple terms, the future does not reward intention. It rewards insistence. Chapter 2. Faith, belief, self-confidence, and the mind's steering wheel. If desire is the ignition, faith is the steering wheel. Desire gives you a reason to move. Faith determines whether you keep moving when the road gets rough. Now, let's be clear from the start. When Napoleon Hill says faith, many people hear religion, or fantasy, or blind optimism. But the practical meaning is simpler and far more useful. Faith, in this context, is internal conviction. It is the ability to hold a decision steady long enough for results to catch up, because most people don't fail due to lack of talent. They fail because their confidence collapses before the process pays them back. To summarize, desire starts the journey. Faith prevents you from quitting halfway. Why faith matters in the real world. Think about how most goals die, not with a dramatic failure, not with a public embarrassment. They die quietly. A person starts a plan. Then doubt shows up. They don't get results fast. They face criticism. They feel behind. They make one mistake. And suddenly, their mind starts whispering, maybe this isn't for you. Maybe you're not that kind of person. Maybe you should be realistic. That voice is not truth. It is the brain trying to protect you from uncertainty. In simple terms, your mind loves safety more than success. Faith is the skill of overriding that instinct. Faith is built, not found. Here's a key idea Hill leans on. Belief is not something you wait for. Belief is something you condition. Most people make a mistake. They think action follows confidence. I'll start when I feel ready. I'll commit when I'm sure. I'll take the risk when I'm confident. But in reality, confidence often follows action, not the other way around. When you repeatedly do difficult things, your brain starts updating its identity. It begins to accept, this is who I am. I don't run. To summarize, faith grows when you keep promises to yourself. The mental economy of belief. Your beliefs act like a filter. They shape what you notice. They shape what you attempt. They shape what you tolerate. If you believe you are the kind of person who always struggles, then even opportunity will feel suspicious. If you believe you are capable, then obstacles become problems to solve, not proof to surrender. In a nutshell, belief is not just a thought. It is a lens, and your lens determines your life. The two types of faith. Let's separate faith into two layers. 1. Faith in the goal. This means the outcome is possible, not guaranteed. Possible. 2. Faith in yourself. This means, even if I fail, I'll adjust and continue. This is critical, because many people can believe in a dream, but don't believe in their resilience. Here's the truth. You don't need to believe everything will go perfectly. You just need to believe you won't stop. To summarize, sustainable faith is not certainty. It is persistence with a backbone. Autosuggestion. Reframed for modern use. Hill connects faith to what he calls autosuggestion, which we will cover next chapter in detail. But the connection matters here. Your mind is always being programmed. If you don't program it intentionally, it will be programmed by fear, social media, the opinions of tired people, past failures, worst-case thinking. Hill's point is that repetition builds emotional acceptance. You become what you rehearse. In simple terms, what you repeatedly tell yourself becomes what you repeatedly expect. And what you repeatedly expect shapes what you repeatedly do. The confidence trap. Why smart people still lose. Some of the most intelligent people struggle financially and professionally. Not because they lack skill, but because they are emotionally fragile around uncertainty. They overthink. They delay. They seek perfect conditions. They avoid judgment. And by the time they feel ready, someone else has already built momentum. Hill is not telling you to be reckless. He is telling you to stop requiring emotional comfort before you act. To summarize, the world rewards people who can move while uncertain. Real faith versus loud faith. There's another important point. Faith does not need to be loud. It does not need to be dramatic. It doesn't need to be motivational quotes every day. Real faith looks like doing the work when no one claps, practicing the skill when no one sees it, saving money when no one knows you're disciplined, Showing up when you feel ordinary. In a nutshell, loud faith talks. Real faith trains. How to build faith. Here is a clean, usable approach. Step 1. Choose one believable statement. Not a fantasy. Something you can accept. For example, I am becoming more disciplined every week. Or, I can learn what I don't know. Step 2. Attach it to action. Belief without action becomes delusion. Action without belief becomes burnout. So you match the statement with a habit. Step 3. Track evidence. Your brain trusts proof. Write down small wins. When you can see progress, faith becomes easier to hold. Step 4. Protect your inputs. If you feed your mind negativity all day, don't be surprised when faith disappears. To summarize, faith is built by evidence, repetition, and environment. The role of environment in faith. A major reason people lose belief is not because they are weak. It's because their environment is toxic. If you are surrounded by people who mock ambition, your faith will be punished daily. If you constantly consume content that triggers fear, your confidence will shrink. If you keep comparing your behind the scenes to someone's highlight reel, your faith will bleed out silently. Hill strongly emphasizes association for a reason. Your mind is social. It adapts to the standard around it. In simple terms, you don't rise to your potential. You sink to your environment's expectations. Faith and money, specifically. Let's make this concrete. Financial growth usually demands delayed reward, saving before spending, investing before luxury, learning before earning more, building before showing off. Without faith, you will constantly sabotage the delay. You'll think, what's the point? I'm not seeing results. Let me enjoy now. And that mindset can keep you broke for years, even with a good income. To summarize, wealth requires patience, and patience requires belief. Faith is not pretending everything will work. Faith is refusing to stop working. It's the inner decision that says, I will learn, I will adjust, I will persist, I will not collapse under uncertainty. In simple terms, faith is the ability to keep your direction steady, even when your feelings change. Chapter 3. Autosuggestion, self-programming, identity, and the words that shape your life. Whether you like it or not, you are being programmed every day by what you listen to, by what you repeat, by what you tolerate, by the people you spend time with, and by the private conversations you have with yourself. Napoleon Hill calls this autosuggestion. In modern language, it is self-programming. It is the process of feeding your mind a message so consistently that it becomes part of your identity. And once something becomes identity, it stops feeling like an effort. It becomes automatic. To summarize, autosuggestion is not magic. It is mental conditioning. The hidden reason people don't change. Most people assume behavior change is mainly about willpower. They say, I just need discipline. I need to try harder. I need more motivation. But willpower is a limited fuel. Identity is a renewable energy. If you see yourself as the kind of person who always struggles, someone who never finishes, someone who can't save, someone who's not lucky, then, even when you try to improve, your deeper identity pulls you back. Because the brain fights to stay consistent with who it believes you are. In simple terms, you don't live according to your goals, you live according to your self-image. Autosuggestion is how you rewrite the self-image. What autosuggestion really does, let's be precise. Autosuggestion does not replace work. It does not replace skill. It does not replace planning. What it does is something more subtle, but just as powerful. It influences what you notice, what you attempt, how you interpret failure, how long you persist, whether you keep your standards high. A mind trained to expect progress responds differently to setbacks than a mind trained to expect defeat. To summarize, autosuggestion shapes your response to reality, and your response shapes your results. The problem with random affirmation. Now, this matters. A lot of people hear autosuggestion and immediately think of empty affirmations. I'm rich, I'm rich, I'm rich. That often fails for one reason. It clashes with internal reality. If your life is chaotic, and your bank account is struggling, repeating I'm wealthy can feel like a lie. And when the mind detects a lie, it resists. So what is the better approach? Use credible statements that pull you forward without breaking your mind's trust. For example, I am becoming financially disciplined. I learn fast when I commit. I can delay gratification to build freedom. I'm the type of person who finishes what I start. In a nutshell, autosuggestion works best when it is believable and linked to action. The real battlefield, your inner narrative. The most important voice in your life is not your boss, not your family, not your critics. It is the voice you hear when things go wrong. That voice decides whether you learn or quit, adjust or collapse, persist or retreat. Some people fail and tell themselves, "See, I knew it. I'm not built for this." Others fail and tell themselves, "Good, now I know what to fix." Same failure, different narrative, different future. To summarize, your narrative is your destiny in disguise. Autosuggestion is the disciplined practice of choosing a better narrative. How words become beliefs? Here's how conditioning works. A single sentence doesn't change your identity, but repetition does. Your mind is like a courtroom. It does not accept one statement as truth. It accepts evidence and repetition. If you repeatedly say, "I'm always broke," your brain looks for evidence to support it. If you repeatedly say, "I can build wealth through discipline," your brain starts noticing behaviors and opportunities that align with that statement. In simple terms, your brain is a pattern machine. It will align your attention with whatever you repeatedly emphasize. Autosuggestion and emotion. This is key for audio and real life. Hill emphasizes emotion because the mind learns faster when something carries feeling. A statement repeated with boredom is weaker. A statement repeated with conviction, with meaning, and with a clear reason lands deeper. So the best autosuggestion is not robotic repetition. It's repetition, connected to purpose. For example, I save because freedom matters to me. I build skills because my family deserves options. I refuse to stay average because my future is watching. To summarize, emotion is the glue that makes repetition stick. A practical autosuggestion routine. Let's build a method that actually works and won't feel childish. Step 1. Write a clear outcome. One outcome, not 5. Example, I will build an additional income stream that earns X per month. Step 2. Write the identity that matches the outcome. Example, I am disciplined, consistent, and patient. Step 3. Write the daily actions. Keep it simple. Example, I will save X weekly, study a skill for 30 minutes daily, and execute one income-building task daily. Step 4. Read it out loud twice daily. Morning and night works best. Not because the universe is listening, because you are listening, and you are training your mind to take your goals seriously. Step 5. Follow it with action immediately. Even small action. Because action is the proof that makes the statement believable. In a nutshell, words plant the seed. Action waters it. Why this works. Identity becomes a habit. The long-term win of autosuggestion is not motivation. It is alignment. Over time, the mind stops fighting the change. Your new self-image becomes normal. Saving stops feeling like deprivation. Learning stops feeling like punishment. Discipline stops feeling like suffering. It becomes who you are. To summarize, autosuggestion is the bridge between wanting change and becoming changed. Negative autosuggestions. This is where many people sabotage themselves without noticing. They repeat phrases like, "Money is hard to get." "Rich people are greedy." "I'm not good with money." "I always fail." "This is just my luck." Sometimes they learned these statements from family, sometimes from culture, sometimes from trauma. But if you repeat them, you strengthen them, and your subconscious mind doesn't argue, it accepts. In simple terms, if you speak defeat long enough, your life will obey it. Your life is heavily influenced by the sentences you repeat most. Autosuggestion is the discipline of choosing those sentences carefully, repeating them consistently, and proving them with action. To summarize, you become what you rehearse. Chapter 4. Specialized knowledge. What to learn, what to ignore, and why information alone won't make you rich. A surprising number of people are well-informed and still financially stuck. They know a little about everything: business, investing, real estate, side hustles, productivity. They can quote advice. They can explain concepts. They can even teach others. But their own life does not move. Napoleon Hill addresses this directly with one idea: specialized knowledge. Not general information. Not random motivation. Not scrolling and saving posts. He means focused knowledge that becomes a practical skill. A skill that produces value. A skill that the market pays for. In simple terms, information makes you aware. Skill makes you valuable. General knowledge is cheap. Specialized knowledge is paid. We live in an age where information is everywhere. That creates an illusion. People start believing that knowing is the same as building. But knowledge that stays in your head does not change your bank account. It doesn't change your opportunities. It doesn't change your influence. What changes your results is knowledge applied in a narrow lane long enough to become competence. To summarize, general knowledge can entertain you. Specialized knowledge can change your income. The trap of learning without earning. Let's talk about a modern problem. Many people use learning as a form of delay. They say, "I'm still researching. I need one more course. I need more clarity. I'm waiting until I understand everything." But deep down, what they're avoiding is exposure. They don't want to be seen as a beginner. They don't want mistakes. They don't want rejection. So they hide in preparation. Preparation can be wise. But preparation without execution becomes a comfortable prison. In a nutshell, if you are always getting ready, you are not going. What counts as specialized knowledge? Hill's point is not that you need a university degree. He's pointing to something more direct. Specialized knowledge is a competence you can demonstrate, a problem you can solve, a result you can reliably create. It is knowledge tied to outcomes. Examples today could look like sales and persuasion, copywriting and storytelling, video editing and content creation, coding and automation, financial analysis, real estate underwriting, high-ticket service delivery, leadership and project management. The category matters less than the depth. To summarize, specialization is not about being smart. It's about being useful in a specific way. How to choose what to specialize in. This is where people get stuck. They ask, "What's the best skill?" But the better question is, what skill fits my situation and market? A practical approach is to look at three intersecting factors. 1. Market demand. What do people and businesses already pay for? 2. Your temperament. What can you do repeatedly without hating your life? 3. Your path to advantage. What can you learn faster because of your background, interest, or access? In simple terms, choose a skill that has buyers, matches your nature, and gives you a learning edge. The silent power of depth. Depth does something most people underestimate. It builds trust. When you're competent in a narrow skill, people stop treating you like a random person with opinions. They start seeing you as a solution. And solutions attract better jobs, better clients, better partnerships, better leverage. To summarize, specialization turns you from one of many into hard to replace. But I don't have time. This is where reality hits. Most people genuinely have responsibilities. Work, family, fatigue. Hill is not asking you to disappear into a mountain and study for years. He's pointing to disciplined consistency. 30 minutes a day is not impressive in a day, but it becomes serious in a year. One focused skill session daily compounds quietly. Your speed improves. Your confidence rises. Your output increases. Your opportunities expand. In a nutshell, small time, repeated, becomes major capability. Specialized knowledge needs a delivery system. Here's something that matters for wealth. A skill can be powerful, but if no one knows you have it, it stays invisible. This is why modern specialization often requires a delivery channel, a portfolio, a public track record, a network, a platform. Not for ego, for access. Because the market can't reward what it can't find. To summarize, skill builds value. Visibility unlocks payment. The role of mentorship and learning networks. Hill repeatedly emphasizes learning through people, not only books. That remains true today. You can learn faster when you join communities where the skill is normal. Get feedback early. Watch how professionals solve problems. Borrow proven frameworks. This is not about worshiping gurus. It's about shortening the distance between you and competence. In simple terms, Isolation slows learning. Proximity accelerates it. The most important point: knowledge must become action. A simple rule can save you years. For every hour you learn, produce something. If you study marketing, write copy. If you study editing, edit a clip. If you study sales, practice calls. If you study investing, build a plan and follow it. This keeps learning from turning into entertainment. To summarize, if learning doesn't change behavior, it becomes mental clutter. Picture someone who wants to increase income. They spend months watching random videos about how to get rich. They jump from idea to idea. Drop shipping today, trading tomorrow, affiliate marketing next week. They feel busy, but nothing builds. Now picture a different approach. They pick one skill, for example, sales. They study a simple framework. They practice daily. They role play. They track results. They get feedback. They apply it in a job, freelancing, or business. Within months, they are measurably better. And that one skill starts opening doors. In a nutshell, scattered learning creates scattered results. Focused learning creates momentum. Wealth rarely comes from what you know. It comes from what you can do repeatedly at a high level. Specialized knowledge is a decision to go deep, apply consistently, and become valuable enough that your income has to respond. To summarize, don't collect information, develop capability. Chapter 5. Imagination, turning ideas into assets, and why creativity is a wealth skill. Most people think imagination is for artists, for kids, for people who paint, sing, or write stories. Napoleon Hill disagrees. He treats imagination as a serious financial tool, because every business, every invention, every product, and every fortune began as an idea that didn't exist yet.
Before it became real, it was imagined.
In simple terms, wealth is often a creative outcome, before it is a financial outcome. Two types of imagination. Hill separates imagination into two forms. We can modernize them like this. 1. Creative imagination. This is when new ideas appear. Sometimes suddenly. Sometimes when you're relaxed. Sometimes when you're under pressure. 2. Synthetic imagination. This is when you combine existing ideas into something useful. You're not inventing from nothing. You're connecting dots other people keep separate. To summarize, some people invent, others rearrange. Both can create value. Why imagination produces money. Money follows usefulness. If you solve a problem people care about, money has a reason to move toward you. Imagination is often how you find those solutions. It helps you ask better questions. What do people struggle with repeatedly? What wastes time? What causes frustration? What feels complicated but could be simplified? What is expensive because it's inefficient? Then imagination helps you design the answer. In a nutshell, imagination is the ability to see opportunity where others see routine. The common misunderstanding: I'm not creative. Many people label themselves as not creative. But most of them are not lacking creativity. They are lacking permission. They were trained to be safe, to follow instructions, to avoid being wrong. Creativity requires tolerance for imperfect ideas. It requires a willingness to test, fail, and adjust without shame. To summarize, creativity is often not a talent issue. It's a confidence and environment issue. How ideas are usually born: great ideas are rarely lightning bolts. Most are shaped through friction. A person notices a problem. They try something small. They get feedback. They improve it. They keep refining. Over time, the idea becomes a system, and the system becomes an asset. In simple terms, you don't wait for a perfect idea. You build a good idea into something strong. The bridge between imagination and wealth. This is where many people get stuck. They have ideas, plenty of them, but nothing changes because the ideas stay in the head. Hill's deeper message is that imagination must connect to planning, persistence, and decision. Otherwise, it becomes daydreaming. To summarize, an idea without action is entertainment. An idea with action becomes leverage. Synthetic imagination in modern life. Synthetic imagination is extremely relevant today because many successful modern businesses are not new inventions. They are improved combinations. Think about what often wins. A service delivered faster. A product made simpler. A process made automated. A confusing topic explained clearly. A boring industry given better branding. This is imagination at work. You don't need to create something no one has ever thought of. You can create something people immediately recognize as useful. In a nutshell, you don't need a revolutionary idea. You need a valuable one. Imagination and personal wealth. Let's bring this down to the individual level. Imagination helps you see options. Without it, your financial life becomes a single path. One job, one salary, one routine. And when that routine gets threatened, you panic. But with imagination, you start asking, how can I add a second stream of income? How can I increase the value of my current work? How can I use my skill in a different market? Who could I partner with? What problem do I solve better than most? To summarize, imagination expands options, and options reduce fear. A practical imagination exercise, simple and repeatable. Here's a method that works without needing inspiration. Take a notebook and answer these prompts. 1. What do people complain about repeatedly? 2. What do people waste time doing? 3. What do people fear or avoid? 4. What feels too expensive, too slow, or too confusing? 5. What do I do that others find difficult? Then pick one answer and ask, what would a simpler version look like? What would a faster version look like? What would a cheaper version look like? What would a more trustworthy version look like? In simple terms, imagination improves when you train it with questions. Why quiet time matters. Hill suggests that many ideas come when the mind is calm. That remains true for modern life. When you're constantly stimulated, scrolling, noise, notifications, pressure, your mind stays reactive, and a reactive mind struggles to create. So, part of imagination is building space, walks, silence, deep work sessions, undistracted thinking time. To summarize, creativity often needs stillness to surface. Example, imagination turning into an asset. Consider someone who notices a problem. People want to learn, but their attention is fragmented. Books feel long. Courses feel complicated. They imagine a solution, clear audiobook breakdowns that translate timeless books into practical lessons. They build a channel. They create consistent content. They improve storytelling. They develop a brand. Eventually that becomes audience, trust, monetization options, partnerships. That is imagination becoming an asset. In a nutshell, your idea becomes wealth when it becomes a system people return to. Imagination is not fantasy. It is the ability to create value before value exists. It turns problems into opportunities and concepts into products when you attach it to execution. To summarize, money follows solutions, and imagination helps you design solutions. Chapter 6. Organized planning. Turning desire into structure, and why most plans fail without follow-through. Desire gives you a target. Faith helps you hold direction. Knowledge makes you capable. Imagination creates options. But none of those guarantee results. Because results demand one thing many people avoid, a plan that turns intention into action. Napoleon Hill calls it organized planning. Not random effort. Not, I'll figure it out. A plan with structure, sequence, and accountability. In simple terms, wanting success is common. Planning success is rare. Why people fail at planning? Most people don't avoid planning because they're lazy. They avoid it because planning exposes reality. A plan forces you to answer uncomfortable questions. What exactly am I doing daily? What am I willing to sacrifice? What skills am I missing? What is my timeline? What happens if I fail this month? Planning removes the comfort of vagueness. And that's why many people prefer motivation. Motivation feels good. Planning feels demanding. To summarize, motivation is emotional. Planning is operational. The messy middle problem. A lot of plans fail in a predictable place. The beginning is exciting. The end is attractive. But the middle is repetitive. The middle is where you learn slowly, improve awkwardly, get ignored at first, make mistakes that embarrass you. And that's where most people quit. Not because the goal is impossible, because they did not plan for the messy middle. In a nutshell, success often dies in boredom, not in difficulty. Organized planning is not one plan. It's many attempts. Hill's approach is practical here. He implies that planning is not a one-time event. You plan, you act, you evaluate, you adjust, then you repeat. This matters because people often treat a plan like a prophecy. If it doesn't work perfectly, they take it as a sign they should stop. But a plan is not a prophecy. It's a hypothesis. To summarize, a plan is meant to be tested, not worshipped. The core of a working plan. If your plan is complicated, you won't follow it. A plan that works usually has 4 simple parts. 1. A clear objective. What outcome are you aiming for? 2. A daily process. What actions must happen consistently? 3. A feedback loop. How will you measure progress and correct mistakes? 4. A support system. Who or what keeps you accountable? In simple terms, plan for consistency, not for perfection. Planning requires a shift in identity. This is important. Some people see planning as restriction. They want freedom, so they resist structure. But here's the paradox. If you do not control your day controls you. If you do not direct your time is directed by distractions. If you do not design your life, you inherit whatever life hands you. Planning is not a cage. It is self-leadership. To summarize, the disciplined person has more freedom, not less. How to build a plan. You can actually execute it. Let's make this practical and audio-friendly. Start with a simple format. State the exact result you want. Method: list the 2 or 3 actions that create the result. Schedule: decide when those actions happen, not someday. A real time. Measurement: decide what success looks like weekly. Adjustment: if it doesn't work, you fix the method, not the mission. In a nutshell, the goal stays stable, the plan evolves. The role of persistence inside planning. Here's a key point many miss. A plan is not only about what you do when you feel strong, it's also about what you do when you feel drained. So your plan should include minimum standards. For example, on good days, you study 1 hour. On bad days, you study 10 minutes. The reason this matters is simple. When you maintain the habit, you protect the identity. And identity is what creates long-term change. To summarize, minimum standards keep you in motion when motivation disappears. Planning for wealth, the 3-layer approach. If we apply this to wealth building, a stable plan often includes Layer 1, protection, emergency fund, basic savings, lowering dangerous debt. This is survival. It keeps setbacks from destroying you. Layer 2, growth, skill building, career growth, business building, investing. This is expansion. It increases earning power and assets. Layer 3, leverage, systems, partnerships, scalable income, and compounding. This is multiplication. It turns effort into an asset. In simple terms, protect first, build second, scale third. The mistake: confusing a goal with a strategy. Here is a common error. Someone says, "My plan is to be successful." That is not a plan. That is a wish. A plan has steps that can be executed on a calendar. What will you do on Monday? What will you do on Tuesday? What will you practice? What will you create? What will you sell? What will you improve? To summarize, if it can't be scheduled, it can't be trusted. Example: organized planning in action. Imagine someone wants to create an income stream through content. A vague plan sounds like, "I'll start a channel." A structured plan sounds like, "I will publish 2 videos per week. I will write scripts on Saturday mornings. I will record on Sunday afternoons. I will edit in 2 sessions during the week. I will study storytelling for 30 minutes daily. I will review analytics weekly and improve one thing." That plan is not glamorous, but it is executable. In a nutshell, organized planning turns dreams into scheduled actions. A goal without a plan becomes stress. A plan without action becomes fantasy. Organized planning is the discipline of turning desire into daily structure, then refining that structure until it works. To summarize, success is rarely a mystery. It is usually a schedule. Chapter 7, Decision, the Power of Speed, Why Indecision is Expensive, and How Winners Commit Early. A surprising number of people don't fail because they chose the wrong path. They fail because they never truly chose a path at all. They live in hesitation. They delay. They wait. They keep options open. They keep thinking, and years pass. Napoleon Hill treats decision as a major separator between those who win and those who stay stuck. Not because winners always decide perfectly, but because they decide early and adjust quickly. In simple terms, progress rewards commitment. Stagnation rewards indecision. Indecision looks harmless, but it is expensive. Indecision feels safe. It feels like you're avoiding mistakes. But the hidden cost is massive. Lost time. Lost momentum. Lost confidence. Lost opportunities. Every time you delay, you teach your mind a quiet lesson. My fear is in control. And once fear is in charge, your life becomes a negotiation with comfort. To summarize, indecision doesn't protect you from failure. It protects you from growth. Why people struggle to decide. Most people don't avoid decisions because they don't know what they want. They avoid decisions because they want certainty. They want guarantees, but life doesn't work that way. Neither does wealth. Neither does success. Clarity often comes after commitment, not before it. So if you're waiting to feel 100% certain, you may be waiting forever. In a nutshell, you don't get confidence, then act. You act, then confidence arrives. Decision is an identity move. Here's an important layer. A decision is not only a choice. It is a statement of who you are. When you decide, you are saying, this is what I do now. This is what I tolerate now. This is what I refuse now. Decision cuts off escape routes. And that's why it scares people. Because escape routes feel comforting. To summarize, many people don't want a better life enough to stop keeping exits open. The difference between fast decisions and reckless decisions. Hill praises quick decision-making, but not foolishness. Quick decisions are usually based on values, priorities, a direction, a willingness to learn. Reckless decisions are usually based on emotion, ego, panic, trying to impress. So the point is not to rush blindly. The point is to stop living in endless delay. In simple terms, decide with intention, then move with discipline. The opinion trap that destroys decisions. Hill warns about something timeless. Too many opinions. When you want to do something meaningful, you will meet two types of people. People who support your growth. People who try to protect you from your growth. The second group isn't always evil. Sometimes they care about you, but often they fear what your change says about their comfort. So they advise you to be realistic. They point out risks. They highlight worst-case outcomes. They remind you of someone who failed. And if you listen to everyone, you will freeze. To summarize, if your goals require courage, you cannot outsource your decision to the crowd. The hidden power of commitment. Commitment does something mentally. When you commit, your mind begins organizing resources, time, focus, learning, relationships, attention. Opportunities that were invisible become noticeable. Not because the world changed overnight, because your filter changed. In a nutshell, commitment sharpens awareness. A practical decision framework. Here is a decision method that keeps you moving without pretending you know the future. 1. Choose a direction that matches your values. Ask, does this move me toward freedom, competence, and stability? 2. Define the next step clearly. Not the whole journey, just the next action. 3. Set a short time window for evaluation. Example, I will commit to this for 30 days, then assess results. 4. Remove the easy exits. Tell someone. Put money down. Schedule it. Create stakes. 5. Adjust based on feedback, not feelings. Feelings change daily. Feedback is more reliable. To summarize, decide, execute, evaluate, refine. Decision and money. The cost of delayed discipline. Financially, indecision looks like, I'll start saving later. I'll invest when the market feels safe. I'll learn a skill when life slows down. I'll start that business when I have more time. But later is the favorite hiding place of regret. Every year, you delay building assets, you lose compounding. Every month you delay learning, you delay earning power. Every week you delay discipline, you reinforce weakness. In simple terms, delay is a tax on your future. The real test of decision. Pressure. A decision is easy when life is calm. The real test comes when pressure hits. When you're tired. When you feel behind. when someone criticizes you, when results are slow. In those moments, the mind will offer you a deal. Quit, and you'll feel relief right now. Decision is the refusal to accept that deal. To summarize, decision means you stop bargaining with discomfort. Example: 2 people, same opportunities. One person gets an opportunity. They decide quickly. I'm doing this. They learn, execute, stumble, adjust, and improve. Another person also gets the opportunity. They overthink. Let me research. I need to be sure. What if I fail? What if people judge me? Months later, the first person has progress. The second person has theories. In a nutshell, the gap is not intelligence. It's commitment. Successful people are not always smarter. They are often simply faster to commit and more willing to adapt. Indecision feels safe, but it quietly steals your life one delay at a time. To summarize, decide with purpose and let action create clarity. Chapter 7. Decision, the Power of Speed. Why indecision is expensive and how winners commit early. A surprising number of people don't fail because they chose the wrong path. They fail because they never truly chose a path at all. They live in hesitation. They delay. They wait. They keep options open. They keep thinking. And years pass. Napoleon Hill treats decision as a major separator between those who win and those who stay stuck. Not because winners always decide perfectly, but because they decide early and adjust quickly. In simple terms, progress rewards commitment. Stagnation rewards indecision. Indecision looks harmless, but it is expensive. Indecision feels safe. It feels like you're avoiding mistakes. But the hidden cost is massive. Lost time, lost momentum, lost confidence, lost opportunities. Every time you delay, you teach your mind a quiet lesson. My fear is in control, and once fear is in charge, your life becomes a negotiation with comfort. To summarize, indecision doesn't protect you from failure. It protects you from growth. Why people struggle to decide. Most people don't avoid decisions because they don't know what they want. They avoid decisions because they want certainty. They want guarantees. But life doesn't work that way. Neither does wealth. Neither does success. Clarity often comes after commitment, not before it. So if you're waiting to feel 100% certain, you may be waiting forever. In a nutshell, you don't get confidence, then act. You act, then confidence arrives. Decision is an identity move. Here's an important layer. A decision is not only a choice, it is a statement of who you are. When you decide, you are saying, this is what I do now. This is what I tolerate now. This is what I refuse now. Decision cuts off escape routes. And that's why it scares people, because escape routes feel comforting. To summarize, many people don't want a better life enough to stop keeping exits open. The difference between fast decisions and reckless decisions. Hill praises quick decision-making, but not foolishness. Quick decisions are usually based on values, priorities, a direction, a willingness to learn. Reckless decisions are usually based on emotion, ego, panic, trying to impress. So the point is not to rush blindly. The point is to stop living in endless delay. In simple terms, decide with intention, then move with discipline. The opinion trap that destroys decisions. Hill warns about something timeless. Too many opinions. When you want to do something meaningful, you will meet 2 types of people. People who support your growth. People who try to protect you from your growth. The second group isn't always evil. Sometimes they care about you, but often they fear what your change says about their comfort. So they advise you to be realistic. They point out risks. They highlight worst-case outcomes. They remind you of someone who failed. And if you listen to everyone, you will freeze. To summarize, if your goals require courage, you cannot outsource your decision to the crowd. The hidden power of commitment. Commitment does something mentally. When you commit, your mind begins organizing resources. Time, focus, learning, relationships, attention. Opportunities that were invisible become noticeable. Not because the world changed overnight, because your filter changed. In a nutshell, commitment sharpens awareness. A practical decision framework. Here is a decision method that keeps you moving without pretending you know the future. 1. Choose a direction that matches your values. Ask, does this move me toward freedom, competence, and stability? 2. Define the next step clearly. Not the whole journey, just the next action. 3. Set a short time window for evaluation. Example, I will commit to this for 30 days, then assess results. 4. Remove the easy exits. Tell someone. Put money down. Schedule it. Create stakes. 5. Adjust based on feedback, not feelings. Feelings change daily. Feedback is more reliable. To summarize, decide, execute, evaluate, refine. Decision and money. The cost of delayed discipline. Financially, indecision looks like I'll start saving later. I'll invest when the market feels safe. I'll learn a skill when life slows down. I'll start that business when I have more time. But later is the favorite hiding place of regret. Every year you delay building assets, you lose compounding. Every month you delay learning, you delay earning power. Every week you delay discipline, you reinforce weakness. In simple terms, delay is a tax on your future. The real test of decision, pressure. A decision is easy when life is calm. The real test comes when pressure hits, when you're tired, when you feel behind, when someone criticizes you, when results are slow. In those moments, the mind will offer you a deal. Quit, and you'll feel relief right now. Decision is the refusal to accept that deal. To summarize, decision means you stop bargaining with discomfort. Example, 2 people, same opportunity, one person gets an opportunity. They decide quickly, I'm doing this. They learn, execute, stumble, adjust, and improve. Another person also gets the opportunity. They overthink, let me research. I need to be sure. What if I fail? What if people judge me? Months later, the first person has progress. The second person has theories. In a nutshell, the gap is not intelligence. It's commitment. Successful people are not always smarter. They are often simply faster to commit and more willing to adapt. Indecision feels safe, but it quietly steals your life one delay at a time. To summarize, decide with purpose and let action create clarity. Chapter 8. Persistence, the quiet superpower, how to outlast setbacks, and why most people stop too soon. If decision is the start of movement, persistence is what keeps you moving when life pushes back. Because life will push back, not once, not gently, repeatedly. Napoleon Hill treats persistence as one of the rare qualities that almost guarantees eventual success. Not because it makes you immune to failure, but because it makes failure temporary. In simple terms, talent opens doors. Persistence keeps you inside long enough to win. Why persistence is so rare? Most people want progress. Few people want the discomfort that creates progress.
Persistence means continuing when
The results are slow. The feedback is harsh. The routine becomes boring. The excitement fades. The doubts get loud. That is why persistence is a separator. Because it is not glamorous. It is not trendy. It doesn't look impressive in the early stages. To summarize, persistence is invisible until it becomes undeniable. The real enemy, emotional fatigue. A major reason people stop is not failure itself. It is emotional fatigue. They get tired of starting again, explaining themselves, feeling behind, not being recognized, watching others seem to win faster. Then the mind starts searching for relief, and quitting offers quick relief. But the relief is temporary. Regret lasts longer. In a nutshell, quitting solves today's discomfort and creates tomorrow's disappointment. Persistence is not just trying harder. Let's clarify something important. Persistence does not mean repeating the same mistake with more intensity. It means staying committed while improving your approach. So it includes learning, adjusting, seeking feedback, refining strategy, building skill. To summarize, persistence is not stubbornness. It is resilience with intelligence. The 3 feet from gold principle, reframe. Hill famously emphasizes how people often quit near success. The modern lesson is the same. Early results are misleading. At the beginning, you work hard and see little return. You feel ignored. Your skill is still weak. Your audience is small. Your income looks unimpressive. Then, if you stay consistent long enough, a tipping point arrives. Skill sharpens. Network grows. Reputation builds. Opportunities multiply. In simple terms, the early stage is paid in effort, not money. Later stages repay the effort. Why people misread failure? Many people interpret failure as a verdict. They treat it as proof they're not built for success. They attach it to identity. I always fail. This never works. I'm not that kind of person. But failure is usually information. It is feedback about process, not value. To summarize, failure is not a label. It is a lesson. Persistence is the decision to learn that lesson instead of running from it. The discipline of showing up. Persistence often looks boring. It is posting content even when views are low. Saving money even when it feels slow. Practicing a skill when no one is watching. Calling clients when you feel nervous. Repeating a routine you've done 100 times. But those boring days are where identity is formed. In a nutshell, what you do consistently becomes what you become permanently. The role of healthy pressure. Hill implies something else that matters. Persistent people create conditions that force progress. Deadlines. Commitments. Public accountability. Financial stakes. Partnerships. This is not to stress yourself unnecessarily. It's to stop giving your old self the option to escape. To summarize, if comfort is always available, growth becomes optional. Persistence and emotional control. Persistence requires emotional regulation. Because the mind swings, one day you feel unstoppable. Next day you feel like a fraud. If you obey those swings, your life becomes unstable. Persistent people don't deny emotions. They simply don't let emotions lead. In simple terms, they use feelings as signals, not commands. A simple persistence system. Here is a structure that keeps persistence realistic. 1. Break big goals into small, repeatable actions. Daily actions reduce overwhelm. 2. Track your show-up rate. Don't track only outcomes. Track consistency. 3. Maintain minimum standards. When energy is low, do the smallest version of the habit. 4. Review weekly. Make adjustments based on what worked and what didn't. 5. Reward consistency, not just results. This trains the mind to respect the process. To summarize, persistence is easier when it is system-based, not mood-based. Persistence and wealth. Wealth building is a long game. It requires staying committed to saving and investing when it feels slow, learning and upskilling when it feels inconvenient, building assets that don't pay immediately, avoiding lifestyle inflation when you start earning more. Most people can do these things for a month. Few can do them for years. That is why wealth feels rare. In a nutshell, wealth is often the reward for long-term consistency in a world addicted to short-term dopamine. Example: the difference persistence makes. Imagine two people start the same journey. They both begin learning a valuable skill. They both start building a side project. They both face early struggles. Person A gets discouraged and stops after 2 months. Person B continues for 12 months, improving slowly. By the end of the year, person B looks naturally talented. But it wasn't talent. It was accumulation. To summarize, persistence creates the illusion of overnight success. Persistence is the skill of staying in motion without needing constant proof that it's working. It is continuing long enough for skill, opportunity, and compounding to catch up. In simple terms, the people who win are often the people who simply refuse to stop. Chapter 9. The Mastermind Principle. Why environment shapes income, how partnerships multiply results, and the power of the right circle. If persistence keeps you moving, the Mastermind Principle determines how far you can go. Napoleon Hill's idea here is straightforward. Most big achievements are not solo performances. They are group outcomes, built through collaboration, shared intelligence, and aligned effort. In simple terms, one mind can create progress. Many aligned minds can create acceleration. The myth of the self-made person. People love the story of the lone genius, the person who made it all by themselves. But if you examine real success closely, you usually find support systems, mentors, partners, teams, networks, communities. Even when someone works independently, they still benefit from relationships that open doors, shared knowledge, or sharpen their thinking. To summarize, independence is valuable, but isolation is expensive. What a mastermind really is: A mastermind is not just a social group. It is not a chat filled with jokes and motivation. Hill's concept is more disciplined. A mastermind is a deliberate alliance of people who share a standard of growth, exchange knowledge honestly, hold each other accountable, combine skills to produce stronger results. The key word is harmony. When people are aligned, their output multiplies. In a nutshell, the right circle doesn't just support you, it upgrades you. Why your income often reflects your circle. This can be uncomfortable, but it's real. Your circle influences your beliefs about what's possible, your tolerance for risk, your habits around money, your expectations of yourself, your standards for discipline. If everyone around you spends impulsively, discipline feels strange. If everyone around you complains, accountability feels harsh. If no one around you builds, building feels lonely. To summarize, the environment normalizes behavior, and normalized behavior becomes your lifestyle. The mastermind effect, shared strengths. A major reason masterminds work is specialization. One person may be good at strategy, another at execution, another at communication, another at systems, another at negotiation. When those strengths combine, the group becomes more capable than any individual alone. In simple terms, you don't need to be good at everything when your network fills your gaps. The hidden benefit. Emotional stability. The mastermind principle is not only about ideas, it also protects your mind during difficult seasons. When you're alone, doubt grows louder. Failure feels personal. A setback feels like a verdict. But in a strong circle, you get perspective. You get feedback. You get correction. You get encouragement grounded in reality. To summarize, the right people can keep you from quitting in a moment of temporary weakness. How to build a real mastermind. Let's make this practical. A real mastermind requires 3 things. 1. Shared seriousness. If people don't take growth seriously, the group becomes a social club. 2. Complementary skills. If everyone has the same strengths, the group stays limited. 3. A structured rhythm. A schedule. A format. A process. Without structure, consistency disappears. In a nutshell, the quality of the group is determined by standards, not by good vibes. A simple mastermind meeting format. Here is a clean structure that works weekly or bi-weekly. Wins. Each person shares one measurable win. 2. Challenges. Each person shares one obstacle they are working through. 3. Strategy exchange. Others give practical ideas, not vague motivation. 4. Commitments. Each person declares one action they will complete before the next meeting. 5. Accountability review. Next session begins by reviewing whether commitments were honored. To summarize, accountability turns connection into results. The wrong circle can destroy you quietly. Hill is also warning you. Some groups drain progress. They normalize mediocrity. They criticize ambition. They laugh at discipline. They treat growth like arrogance. Sometimes this comes from jealousy. Sometimes it comes from fear. Sometimes it comes from their own disappointment. Regardless of the reason, the effect is the same. Your confidence gets chipped away. In simple terms, you can't build a strong future while inhaling weak expectations every day. The mastermind principle and money, this is crucial. Wealth is not only created by effort. It is often created by access to opportunities, access to capital, access to information, access to clients, access to partnerships. Relationships are a currency, not in a manipulative way. In a practical way, if you solve problems and build trust, people want to connect you to more value. To summarize, money often moves through networks before it moves through bank accounts. Example, the difference a mastermind makes. Imagine someone trying to start a business alone. They struggle with marketing. They price too low. They avoid selling. They waste time on the wrong tasks. Now imagine they join a group where one person teaches them how to position their offer. Another helps them set systems. Another gives feedback on their message. Another introduces them to a first client. The progress that would take a year can happen in months. In a nutshell, masterminds compress time. Your future is not only determined by what you know, it is shaped by who sharpens you. Choose circles that raise your standards, strengthen your execution, and challenge your thinking. To summarize, your network doesn't just connect you to opportunities. It trains your identity. Chapter 10. Sex Transmutation. Channeling Energy into Focus. Productivity and Creative Drive. This chapter is one of the most misunderstood sections of Think and Grow Rich. Some people exaggerate it. Others avoid it entirely. So let's handle it with clarity and maturity. Napoleon Hill's point is not to be sensational. He is highlighting a principle. Human energy is powerful, and when it is unmanaged, it leaks into distraction. When it is directed, it becomes fuel for achievement. In simple terms, the same energy that pulls you toward pleasure can be redirected toward purpose. What Hill is really saying, Hill uses old language, but the modern translation is straightforward. You have drive. You have impulses. You have emotional force. If that force controls you, it can produce poor decisions, lost focus, compulsive behavior, weak discipline, regret. But if you learn to manage that force, it can produce intensity, creativity, endurance, confidence, productivity. To summarize, this chapter is about self-control and channeling energy, not about obsession. The core principle, energy is neutral. Direction determines the outcome. Energy itself is not the problem. The direction is. A powerful drive can build a business or destroy a reputation. It can create disciplined focus or constant distraction. It can strengthen relationships or trigger impulsive mistakes. In a nutshell, energy is like fire. It can cook your food or burn your house depending on how you handle it. Why this matters for wealth and success? Success requires long stretches of focus, building skill, creating value, staying consistent, thinking long-term, delaying gratification. If your impulses constantly pull you toward quick pleasure, you will struggle to stay aligned with long-term goals. This is not about being perfect. It's about reducing self-sabotage. To summarize, discipline is easier when your attention isn't constantly being drained. Modern example. The attention economy. Today, temptation is everywhere. Your phone is designed to keep you hooked. Entertainment is unlimited. Instant gratification is normal. So the skill of transmutation, redirecting urge into output, is more relevant than ever. In simple terms, your attention is being competed for daily. If you don't control it, someone else will. Transmutation as a practical skill. Let's keep it actionable. Transmutation is not suppression. It is conversion. It means when you feel strong emotional energy, instead of chasing distraction, you move that energy into something productive. Work on a project. Train your body. Study a skill. Create content. Solve a hard problem. Build a system. You're not denying your humanity. You're directing it. To summarize, you don't kill the urge. You repurpose it. The pattern. Impulse. Pause. Redirect to. Here is a simple method. Notice the impulse. Name it. Don't dramatize it. 2. Pause for 10 seconds. That pause is power. It separates you from automatic behavior. Redirect into a prepared action. This is why preparation matters. You need a default productive move. For example, write 1 paragraph. Edit 1 minute of video. Do 10 push-ups. Read 1 page. Send 1 outreach message. In a nutshell, you replace automatic distraction with automatic progress. Why this builds confidence? Confidence often comes from self-respect. When you keep controlling yourself, your identity strengthens. I do what I say. I don't obey every impulse. I can delay gratification. That inner trust becomes visible in your posture, decisions, and consistency. To summarize, self-mastery creates a quiet confidence that no one can fake. The relationship to creativity. Hill also suggests that redirected energy increases creativity. Here's a modern way to think about it. When you reduce scattered behavior, the mind has more bandwidth, more clarity, more intensity. Creative breakthroughs often happen when the mind is disciplined enough to stay with a problem long enough to solve it. In simple terms, brilliance is often the reward for sustained attention. The danger mismanagement creates ruin. Hill's warning is practical. When people mismanage their impulses, they often make choices that damage trust, lose focus for years, sabotage relationships that stabilize their life, create stress that affects performance. This is especially important because long-term wealth requires a stable foundation, reputation, relationships, emotional control, consistent work. To summarize, success is not only built by skill, it is protected by character. Your drive is a power source. If you let it leak, it weakens you. If you direct it, it strengthens you. In simple terms, when you learn to channel your strongest urges into disciplined action, your productivity, focus, and long-term results rise sharply. To summarize, self-control is not restriction, it is leverage. Chapter 11. The Subconscious Mind. How beliefs sink deep, why habits become automatic, and how to reprogram your defaults. If you've ever said, "I don't know why I keep doing this," you've met your subconscious. You can consciously want one life, and unconsciously keep choosing another. That's the battlefield Napoleon Hill is pointing to here. The subconscious mind is the part of you that runs on autopilot. It stores patterns. It repeats behaviors. It protects familiar identity, even when familiar is painful. In simple terms, your conscious mind makes plans. Your subconscious mind runs your habits. Why the subconscious matters more than motivation. Motivation is temporary. The subconscious is consistent. A motivated person can change for a weekend. A trained subconscious can change for a lifetime. That's why people often struggle with saving money consistently, staying disciplined with food or fitness, avoiding impulsive spending, following through on goals. They are fighting their defaults. To summarize, your life is often a reflection of your deepest programming, not your highest intentions. How programming gets installed? Most subconscious programming was not chosen. It was absorbed. From family beliefs about money, cultural attitudes about success, childhood experiences, social environment, repeated emotional moments. If you grew up hearing, "Money doesn't come easy," or "People like us don't get rich," or "Rich people are dirty," those messages can become your financial ceiling, not because they are true, because they are repeated. In a nutshell, repetition plus emotion equals belief. The subconscious accepts, then it acts. Hill's major point is that the subconscious does not argue with what you repeatedly feed it. It accepts it, then expresses it through behavior. If you repeatedly feed fear, you get hesitation. If you repeatedly feed discipline, you get consistency. If you repeatedly feed confidence, you get courage. In simple terms, what you plant in the mind shows up in the life. Why people self-sabotage? Self-sabotage is rarely random. It often happens when success threatens your old identity. For example, if your family struggled financially, wealth may feel unfamiliar. If your circle normalizes mediocrity, growth may feel like betrayal. If you failed repeatedly, progress may feel suspicious. So when you start doing well, your subconscious tries to restore the old normal. It creates excuses. It triggers procrastination. It pulls you back into comfort. To summarize, sabotage is the subconscious trying to protect identity, not destroy you. Reprogramming. You must replace, not only remove. Many people try to stop bad habits. But habits don't die from being attacked. They die from being replaced. If you remove a habit and don't install a new one, the old pattern returns. So the practical goal is remove the old behavior. Replace it with a better default. Reinforce the new default until it becomes automatic. In simple terms, the subconscious learns through repetition and reward. The role of emotion in reprogramming. Hill emphasizes that emotion carries messages deeper. A statement spoken without feeling is weak. A statement connected to meaning is stronger. This is why routines that combine repetition, emotion, and action are so effective. To summarize, the subconscious responds to what feels real, not only to what sounds smart. A practical subconscious reset. Here is a realistic system you can apply. You identify the pattern. Ask, what do I do automatically that keeps me stuck? Examples: spending when stressed, avoiding hard tasks, delaying savings, overthinking decisions. 2. Identify the trigger. What happens right before the behavior? Fatigue, stress, social pressure, boredom. 3. Choose a replacement response. Not perfect, just better. Example: when stressed, I walk for 5 minutes instead of spending. When bored, I study for 10 minutes instead of scrolling. When tempted to delay, I do one small action immediately. 4. Reinforce daily. Repeat the new response until it becomes familiar. In a nutshell, habits change when you change what you do in the trigger moment. Subconscious and wealth. The default setting of money behavior. Many people think money problems are math problems. Often they are behavior problems. And behavior is driven by subconscious defaults. Examples. People overspend because spending equals comfort. People avoid investing because risk equals danger. People stay underpaid because visibility equals fear. People don't negotiate because conflict equals threat. To summarize, your financial life reflects your emotional conditioning around money. How to install better money defaults. Here are a few subconscious-friendly defaults. Pay yourself first. Automate savings, so discipline doesn't depend on mood. Delay big purchases. Create a rule, 24 hours or 7 days before impulsive buys. Track spending without shame. Shame causes avoidance. Awareness creates control. Build a stress plan. Know what you'll do when emotions spike, so you don't spend to self-soothe. In simple terms, systems are how you protect yourself from yourself. Your conscious goals are important, but your subconscious habits are powerful. When you intentionally program better defaults, discipline becomes easier, and progress becomes more consistent. To summarize, you don't change your life by force. You change it by replacing what you repeat automatically. Chapter 12. The Brain. Mental Energy, Influence, and Why Your Mind Spreads to Others. Napoleon Hill introduces an idea here that can sound strange if you take it too literally. So we will ground it in what is practical and observable. His core message is this: your mind affects your environment, and your environment affects your mind. Not through magic, through influence. People pick up energy. They absorb moods. They mirror confidence. They respond to certainty. They react to fear. In simple terms, you are always broadcasting something, and people are always receiving something. The brain as a transmitter. Modernized, Hill describes the brain like a transmitter and receiver. Today we can interpret this in a clean way. Your brain produces attention, emotion, focus, and behavior. Those things shape your communication. Your communication shapes relationships. Relationships shape access and opportunity. So even if we remove all mystery, the principle holds. To summarize, your inner state influences your outer outcomes through the way you show up. Why energy matters in wealth and success. People often underestimate this. Two people can have similar skills but get very different results. Why? One person shows up calm, clear, disciplined, confident. Another shows up scattered, unsure, apologetic, reactive. Clients respond differently. Employers respond differently. Partners respond differently. In a nutshell, competence matters. But presence multiplies competence. Mental frequency as focus. Let's translate Hill's language into modern terms. When Hill talks about mental frequency, a useful interpretation is dominant focus. What you focus on repeatedly becomes your mental home. If you focus on fear, you notice threats. If you focus on scarcity, you notice limits. If you focus on growth, you notice options. If you focus on solutions, you notice pathways. In simple terms, focus shapes perception, and perception shapes decisions. The contagion effect. Human beings are highly social. Confidence spreads. Panic spreads. Hope spreads. Negativity spreads. If you enter a room anxious, you often create tension. If you enter steady, you often create calm. This matters in business, leadership, and negotiation. To summarize, you don't only communicate with words, you communicate with your emotional state. Why this matters for the Mastermind principle. This chapter connects directly to the Mastermind principle. A strong group is not only smart, it's aligned. When a group shares a positive, disciplined, forward-moving mindset, it produces more ideas, more execution, more resilience. But when a group lives in blame, gossip, and defeat, it produces stagnation, confusion, and low standards. In a nutshell, the emotional climate of your circle becomes your future. The brain, habits, and your daily inputs. Here is the practical part. Your brain is shaped by inputs. If you feed it chaos, drama, endless negativity, cheap dopamine, then your mind becomes noisy. A noisy mind struggles to plan, persist, and create. But if you feed it focus, learning, healthy routines, constructive ideas, then your mind becomes stronger. To summarize, your brain becomes what you repeatedly consume. Mental energy and physical energy. Hill also implies something that's still true today. Mental performance is tied to physical condition. When you are sleep-deprived, your discipline drops. When you don't move your body, your mood drops. When you eat poorly, your focus drops. This is not about perfection. It's about understanding the chain. In simple terms, your habits feed your brain, and your brain feeds your future. Confidence is a social signal. Confidence is not arrogance. Confidence is clarity. It says, I know what I'm doing. I can handle challenges. I'm not easily shaken. People are drawn to that because it feels safe. This is why Hill emphasizes belief, autosuggestion, and persistence. Those qualities don't just help you internally, they change how people respond to you externally. To summarize, certainty attracts attention, and attention attracts opportunity. A practical exercise, training your mental signal. Here is a simple routine. 1. Start the day with a clear intention. One major outcome for the day. 2. Control your first inputs. No doom scrolling first thing. Set the tone before the world sets it for you. 3. Use short focus blocks. Work in 25-50-minute sessions. Break, repeat. 4. End the day with review. What worked? What didn't? What will you adjust tomorrow? In a nutshell, you strengthen mental energy through structure, not hype. Example. Influence in real life. Consider two salespeople. One approaches a client with desperation. They overtalk. They discount too early. They sound unsure. Another approaches with calm certainty. They ask better questions. They listen. They present value clearly. They don't chase approval. Same product, different energy, different outcome. To summarize, people often buy the confidence behind the offer, not just the offer itself. Your mindset is not private. It influences your behavior, your communication, your relationships, and your opportunities. In simple terms, you radiate what you rehearse. To summarize, train your inner state, and your outer world responds differently. Chapter 13. The Sixth Sense. Intuition, pattern recognition, and why inner guidance often comes from depth. This chapter is another one people misunderstand. Napoleon Hill calls it the sixth sense. Some readers treat it like something mystical, but we can interpret it in a grounded way, without losing the power of the idea. The practical meaning is, after you spend enough time learning, failing, refining, and focusing, you begin to develop intuition, not guessing, not superstition, a kind of inner guidance that comes from experience, pattern recognition, and deep understanding. In simple terms, when you've seen enough, you start sensing what will work before you can explain it perfectly. Why intuition is real, even without mystery. Think of a skilled driver. They can sense danger before it happens. Not because they can predict the future, but because they recognize patterns. A car drifting slightly, a strange movement, an unsafe gap, an unusual speed. Or think of a good negotiator. They hear a tone. They notice hesitation. They detect what's not being said. That is a form of sixth sense. It's trained perception. To summarize, intuition is often expertise speaking faster than logic, where the sixth sense comes from. Hill implies that the sixth sense is activated after you develop the earlier principles. That matters. You don't get intuition first. You get it after. Desire gives you direction. Faith gives you consistency. Knowledge gives you competence. Planning gives you structure. Persistence gives you endurance. In a nutshell, intuition shows up when you've done the work long enough to become sharp. Why many people never develop it? Many people hop between paths. They try one thing for 2 weeks, then another, then another. They never stay long enough to gain depth. Without depth, there are no patterns. Without patterns, there is no intuition. There is only randomness. To summarize, intuition is the reward for staying in one lane long enough to understand it. The role of quiet and focus. This is important for modern life. Your intuition is harder to hear when your mind is noisy. When you're constantly scrolling, reacting, multitasking, and consuming information, you rarely get clarity. But when you create space, your brain can process. In simple terms, many gut feelings are actually your mind connecting dots in silence. The difference between intuition and impulse. We need a clean distinction here. Impulse is usually emotional and urgent. It says, "Do it now." It often comes with anxiety or excitement. Intuition is calmer. It feels clear, not chaotic. It often arrives as a simple knowing. This is the move, or this is wrong. To summarize, impulse pushes. Intuition guides. How to strengthen intuition. Here is how you build it deliberately. 1. Commit to depth. Choose a field or skill and stay long enough to learn patterns. 2. Review outcomes. After decisions, ask what worked, what failed, why. 3. Study people who have proven results. This trains your judgment faster. 4. Reduce noise. Give yourself time without stimulation, so insights can surface. 5. Act, then refine. Intuition improves through feedback. In a nutshell, intuition is trained through repetition, reflection, and results. Sixth sense and wealth decisions. In money, intuition helps you avoid obvious traps. Over time, you start sensing when an opportunity is mostly hype, when risk is being hidden, when someone is selling fantasy, when the numbers don't match the story. You also begin sensing which partnerships feel solid, which strategies match your temperament, which goals are aligned with your values. To summarize, wealth isn't only about opportunity, it's about judgment. A realistic example, imagine two people entering a business deal. One is inexperienced. They get impressed by presentation. They get pressured by urgency. They ignore red flags. Another has been in business for years. They've made mistakes before. They've seen patterns. They don't rush. They ask sharper questions. They notice inconsistency. They sense what's missing. Same deal. Different perception. Different outcome. In simple terms, the sixth sense often saves you from expensive lessons. Intuition is not a shortcut around work. It is the product of work. It is what develops when you stay consistent, learn deeply, and reflect honestly. To summarize, when your mind is trained, it begins guiding you with quiet clarity. Chapter 14, Overcoming Fear. The hidden forces that control people and how to take your mind back. Napoleon Hill ends with a blunt truth. Many people don't lack opportunity. They lack courage. Not because they are weak, but because fear quietly runs their decisions. Fear of failure. Fear of criticism. Fear of poverty. Fear of loss. Fear of uncertainty. Fear of not being enough. Fear doesn't always scream. Sometimes it whispers. Sometimes it sounds like being realistic. In simple terms, fear rarely stops you with force. It stops you with excuses that feel reasonable. Fear is a story your mind rehearses. Fear often isn't a fact. It's a prediction. It imagines a future problem, then reacts as if the problem already happened. And the mind has a bias. It prefers the familiar, even when the familiar is painful. So fear often protects comfort, not safety. To summarize, fear is not always danger. Sometimes it is resistance to growth. 1. Fear of poverty. This fear drives many financial behaviors. Hoarding money out of panic. Avoiding investment because risk feels like threat. Accepting low income because it feels secure. Staying in jobs that drain life because the paycheck feels like survival. There is a healthy awareness of financial risk, but fear of poverty becomes destructive when it prevents progress. In simple terms, fear of poverty can keep you poor by making you avoid the steps that build wealth. 2. Fear of criticisms. This is one of the most common success killers. Fear of criticism keeps people from starting businesses, from posting content, from selling their skills, from negotiating, from stepping into leadership. They don't want to look foolish. They don't want to be mocked. They don't want people to talk. But here's the reality. People will talk whether you win or lose. To summarize, you can't build a big future while trying to protect a small ego. 3. Fear of failure. Fear of failure often disguises itself as perfectionism. People say, "I'm just planning. I'm just waiting for the right time. I need to be fully prepared." But deep down, They are trying to avoid proof that they are not yet excellent. The irony is simple. Failure is how you become competent. Avoiding failure keeps you inexperienced. In a nutshell, the only people who never fail are the people who never attempt anything meaningful. 4. Fear of loss. This fear can make people freeze. They avoid investing. They avoid partnerships. They avoid change. Now loss is real. Risk is real. We should respect it. But avoiding all loss guarantees a different loss.
Lost time.
Lost opportunity. Lost growth. To summarize, you can lose money taking smart risks. You can also lose your life avoiding them. Fear of illness, or weakness, 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 one progenies album bore. Hill includes this because physical and mental health affect confidence. When people feel weak, they often lose discipline, lose hope, lose momentum. This isn't about blaming anyone. It's about recognizing the connection. Health supports performance. In simple terms, if your body is neglected, your mind often struggles to stay strong. 6. Fear of old age, or running out of time. This fear can cut both ways. Some people panic and make reckless decisions. Others surrender and stop trying. But the better response is urgency with wisdom. Start now. Build habits now. Improve skills now. Protect your finances now. To summarize, time pressure can create desperation, or it can create discipline. The choice is yours. How fear controls money decisions. Fear is a major driver of impulsive spending for comfort, avoiding responsibility, chasing get-rich-quick schemes, staying underpaid because negotiating feels risky. This is why Hill emphasizes faith, autosuggestion, and persistence. They are not just motivational ideas, they are tools for emotional control. In simple terms, wealth requires mental stability under pressure. A practical fear reduction framework. Here is a grounded method to weaken fear without pretending you're fearless. 1. Name the fear. What exactly are you afraid of? Be specific. 2. Define the worst case. Not to panic, but to clarify. 3. Define the most likely case. Often it's less extreme than your mind predicts. 4. Define the best case. What happens if it works? 5. Choose the smallest brave action, not a giant leap, a step. Then, repeat. To summarize, courage is not a feeling. It is a behavior you practice. The key habit. Replace fear with skill. One of the best ways to reduce fear is competence. When you learn sales, communication, money management, investing basics, negotiation, fear loses power because you stop feeling helpless. In a nutshell, fear thrives in ignorance and fades in capability. Fear is part of being human, but it doesn't deserve the driver's seat. The goal is not to eliminate fear. The goal is to act with fear present and build evidence that you can handle life. To summarize, courage is trained, and the trained mind becomes free. If there's one message to take from this breakdown, it's this. Success is not a personality trait. It is a practiced mindset. Repeat it until it becomes normal. A clear desire gives you direction. Belief stabilizes you when results are slow. Skill makes you valuable. Planning turns goals into calendars. Decision kills delay. Persistence carries you through the boring middle. Your circle raises or lowers your standards. Self-control protects your focus. Habits run your future. And fear loses power when you train courage in small daily actions. None of this requires luck. It requires ownership. You don't need to do everything at once. Pick one principle from today and install it into your week. Make it visible. Make it measurable. Make it repeatable. That is how the book becomes real. Not in your notes, but in your behavior. This has been Audiobook Lib. If you want more breakdowns of timeless books into practical lessons, follow the channel. Until then, keep building. Not just your income, but your mind.